G'day legends, welcome to the Pot Noodle and Celtic Down Under. I'm your host, Jared, and joining me, guess who's back? Guess who's back? Guess who's back? Johnny's back. Back again. Tell your friends. How are you, Johnny?
I was just leaving you to keep going there. No, yeah, no, you could have gone for a while.
Could have kept going, but the issue was we're in the first 5 minutes and I would have stuck to the Eminem song, but would have got us done for poor language or whatever. So anyway.
Yeah, yeah, true. I'm good, Jared. It's like we were just saying. I've been unfortunately extremely busy at work. It's just a busy period right now, so I've been jet setting all across Australia, up and down the east coast. So finally, I've got some time to sit and talk to you guys. So you have to stick with my voice for an hour, and then I'll be back away to Sydney and Wollongong soon enough. So you get a break.
Everyone's going to love the dulcet tones of Johnny. There we go.
Yeah, because we all like to hear an English voice now and again, right?
He mixes it up from this Australian accent. That's all I've got to
It's
say.
very true.
Yeah. So, yeah, just everyone, thanks for tuning in. Sorry we got off to a little bit of a late start. Just catching up with Johnny, trying to get my computer running and everything properly. So, yeah, apologies for that, but here we are. So, we'll try not to waste too much of your time. What I'm going to do, the game Celtic versus Hearts, we'll talk about that real briefly. We're going to leave the main deep dive into that for the boys on the Weekend Review podcast. It's on in a couple of hours, in about 3 hours' time on the channel. Reason being, my Celtic TV was playing up on the weekend. So I've only seen the highlights and post-match commentary and presses and all this sort of stuff. So I can only comment on it on what I've seen. So it's not a lot, to be honest with you. But anyway, we'll do our best, and then we'll have a bit of fun later on in the pod, talking about the left back situation, striker situation. We'll play some lucky dip with a few of our other topics there. So I'll get you guys in the comments to just throw random numbers between 1 and 24 in the comments later on. And then we'll just go off on a few tangents and see what happens. So hope it's an enjoyable show for you all. Before we get into it though, Jerry Burns, how are we doing today, lads? Another 3 points in the bag. The title is getting closer. Exactly, Jerry. And that's something that I'm looking forward as well, Johnny. Like the Hearts game. We won 3-0. It was a game of two halves. That's the way I saw it. So, first half, the first 10, 15 minutes, Hearts were pressing us the way that we were, like similar to the way Rangers did, Hibs did before that. But we worked our way through it. We figured it out a way and we got out and played some great football, really clinical in front of goals. We're up 3-0 at half time. Second half, they seemed to back off their press. And then it became a lot more, okay, we've already got this one, so let's just cruise to the end of the game. That's the way I saw it. I don't know how you saw the game. So just yeah.
Yeah, no, that's almost exactly the same, Jared. I think we are now used to being pressed against. So the past couple of games, that's certainly something that the opposition have been trying to do. And look, they've been getting joy recently. You know, we've had some not great results in recent games, and it seems to be a tactic that works. But we're also very flexible and adaptable. So, look, I think we came out, we knew what we were going to go up against. We definitely had a game plan, and yeah, look, second half it all kind of slowed the pace slowed right down. But that's kind of, I mean, at 3-0 at half time, it almost always goes that way. Very rarely do you see teams trying to continue to kick on and try to get a result out of it. So yeah, parking the bus is probably what you're going to do. Try to mitigate losses and stuff. So yeah, and Hearts are no mugs. They're still sitting sort of sixth, seventh. Can't remember off the top of my head. But so it's not going to be. These are those type of games that could easily have been an upset, and it wasn't. And it seems to be that we settled after the McGregor injury and stuff. And yeah, no, it was a good result.
The funny thing is though, as well, that we what I found funny about it though was we had a few changes that were forced on us. But with the whole press thing, like what I thought watching from what I've seen, first half highlights, then the second half highlights, it reminded me, and this is what I was laughing about as I was putting together the run sheet here. I'm like, This so reminded me of games in Brendan's first run at the club, where we'd come out and we get 2 or 3 nil up at half time, and then we just put the foot on the ball in the second half and cruise. And we haven't done that a lot since he's been back at the club the last couple of seasons. So it reminded me a lot of that sort of a game where we got the job done early, we got three up, cool, let's just put the foot on the ball, not overdo it because we don't want. We've got a few injuries, we can't afford a few more, and just off we go and just game manage it. That's all it seemed like to me. So I was really that's how I interpreted the game. Now the starting lineup, Johnny, it was good to see Sinosalo get a bit of game time with Casper being hurt. Me and Willie
Mm.
on Thursday were talking about, is it going to be Bain? Is it going to be Sinosalo? Thank God it was Sinosalo. That's all I've got to say. But you had him in goal. You've got Johnson, Carter Vickers, Naroski, and Schlupp across the back. Middle of the park, Kelmack was back in along with Engels and Rio. Up front, Dazen in the middle, Jota on the left, Kun on the right. So Square Sausage Mick was saying here, no surprise mate is banging in the goals, playing in his natural position, natural and preferred position. Maybe we should have sold Kyogo sooner. What's your thoughts on that, Johnny? Because we're going to talk about Kyogo a little later on in the pod, but yeah, what's your thoughts on the whole way Made is playing at the moment?
Oh, without too many superlatives, it's sensational. It's just he's found a stride that you wouldn't expect a winger moving into the middle to have. And I think, as we've all kind of spoke to at length, Maeda has that versatility. He plays down the middle for Japan. He has the speed to play as a winger. He is just an attack minded player. So you could very much play him anywhere across the front three, and I think he would do very well. I do think though that the three attackers that we have complement Maeda. Well, sorry, the two attackers, including him, and then himself, they complement each other. I think that also goes into the way that we want to play football as well. The running at the opposition at speed, cutting the ball in across, and the sort of the tap ins, but they're very manufactured, right? It's not as if like it's just an opportunity that sort of inorganically just you have to sort of force it and it just happens to go in. These are extremely well thought out attacking moves, and Maeda's speed means you can do that. So they all kind of just complement each other. But I think he's completely undroppable in the position. And it goes into the whole conversation about Ida and the money that we spent on him, and he's entirely does he suit this style of attacking play? Probably not. He's probably a late game attacker when the opposition is tired, and he has a lot of energy, and he can sort of be like a traditional striker. Maeda is almost a false nine. He's not, but he almost is, right? Um, Generally think that's him now. I can't see him being dropped from that position. I can't see him being pushed out to the wing to sacrifice all of that. I just yeah. So yeah, it's really encouraging to go from who's going to be our striker is either really up to it to oh no, actually we've had a fantastic one all along.
It's funny because there's two main points to what you've just said there, Johnny, that I want to touch on. So a while back in it, you said it's not often a winger going into the centre forward position can play like that. According to Liam on this pod for the last 3 years, and even before Maeda was linked with this, where he was saying he always said he was a striker
He
who's
did.
playing on the left to accommodate Kyogo. So we're going back 4 years on this pod of Liam saying that no, he's playing out of position. He's actually a striker playing on the wing so Kyogo can play. Now we're finally getting to see that. And some of us are thinking, oh, what are we doing here? Like, why didn't we do this sooner? The other thing that you touched on was about Ida. And I actually think, and I can't think of many players in the modern era who are the super sub striker. That tend to die. Remember back when, okay, so I'm 42, right? So going back to my kid, when I was a kid, you had, Man United had Ole Gunnar Solskjaer as their super sub. And then you go on a few years and there's other clubs like Christian Vieri when he was playing for Inter Milan. He could start and do well, but he was also just as good coming on as a late sub. Who's been that super sub? Because I actually think when you look at what Eder did last year for us late in the season, and then you look at him in this current squad, he's better in that super sub role than he is as a starter because he's got tired centre backs to run at with his size, speed, and ability. And actually, I think it suits him better. Let Dazen run him ragged, and then when it's time to take one of the wingers off, whether you got to take Kun or Jota off, then you move Dazen back out to one of those wings, and then you chuck Eder through the middle, and then it's a completely different look, and you get to go out there and bully them. And I think he's at in this exact squad and the way Rogers wants us to play. He's a super sub for us. The last team that I can think that had someone a striker off the top of my head, the last striker I can think of who was a super sub, not at Celtic, was Chicharito when he was at Man United. Javier Hernandez, him coming off the bench, he's scoring so many. I can't think of a lot of players like that. A lot of people don't want to be it. They want to be the starter. They want to see their name in lights. They want to be the main man. But Eder's role in this team, yeah, we spent a lot of money on it, but we've already received that money back from qualifying for the Champions League through his goals last year. So I'm not worried about what we spent on him. I think the role that suits him best is the super sub.
Look, not in the striker position, but I would maybe make the argument that Abada was our super sub, if you like. When we had Maeda and Kyogo playing, then one of them would get subbed, and Abada would sometimes come on. So that could have been the only scenario in which it happened. But on the cost of either, I personally feel like same actually argument with Engels, for being honest, that a 9 million to probably 12 million pound player, that is a mitigated risk purchase. You just nowadays you're just not necessarily going to get a fantastic straight out ready to go player every single time. They're still going to be a bit rough, and it takes a very certain personality to be comfortable to sit on the bench and take their opportunities when they can't. Ida is young. He wasn't getting joy at Norwich. He's been look. To be fair, the Irish connection helps a lot here, right? Because he's obviously got an affinity for Celtic, and that means that he wants to be around. But which means he agrees to come to Celtic in the first place. But he's also happy to be like, okay, I need to put the hard work in. I obviously am not. I imagine he's probably not stoked that he's sitting on the bench most weeks, but he'll take his opportunity when he comes, and he's got a goal in him as well when he comes off the bench. So I think it's kind of the best scenario we could possibly hope for. We've got a fantastic striker who is just banging in goals for fun. Like it looks effortless. And if we're very honest, at the end of Kyogo's tenure, I'm starting to get a bit strained. Maeda's making this look effortless, and then we've also got Ido who's happy to come on and score goals for us when he gets the opportunity. So we're in a good place with our attacking players.
The one thing with Eder as well that I want to say though is he wasn't really doing it in pre-season with Norwich. He didn't
No,
really
he
get a
wasn't.
preseason. That's what we forget. Everyone keeps forgetting about him this year. Did he get a preseason? Did he do a full preseason training with us? No. Did he do a full preseason at Norwich? No. It was hitting in and out of the squad because moves come and stand you down for a few days. So I want to see Eder with a full preseason under his belt under Brendan. This time next year is where I want to see him up and about challenging for that starting spot. I still think there's a player there.
Oh, for sure,
But
100%. Yeah.
But the thing with Maeda, what you're saying about he's making it look effortless, I've said this a few times. I said it to Shane a couple of weeks ago. When he's playing in the striker, he it's going to sound weird. He has less time to think.
Yeah, yeah, it's a pretty good point actually. Yeah.
With his speed, he just gets into places quickly, and it's just all right, instinct, football, bang there, or header off the post, Jota bang, pats it in, puts it in. He could have had a hat trick against Hearts, right? So realistically, you put Maeda out on the wing with Eder through the middle, he's got more time, and you get those question marks that everyone had about him last season. I think get him in the centre forward position where he doesn't have time to think. He's just got to react and do what comes naturally. And yeah, Maestro, exactly. Maeda to shoot 40 goals. Well, he's on 30. There's still 9 games left for the season. could do it. He scored 6 in the last 6 games, so could happen. And I loved him in the after-match press conference. He gets asked something and he doesn't respond to that question. He tries and he says something, and then he gets asked about, you almost had a hat trick. He goes, I'll score a hat trick in the next game. I love it. It's the best. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting there. But McLaughlin's saying if Mater gets 40, he's off in the summer. And then Smell the Glove saying, I keep saying I'll judge Engels and Eder next season after a proper Brendan preseason. Exactly. So, yeah, the goals in the game, clearly, they were just clinical.
Yeah, they
Speed
were.
of play, both wingers getting assists, made a finish and two off, and put the other one in was off the post. So do we call that an off the post assist or whatever? He made the chance there. So yeah, overall, I just think we're clicking nice and forward there. So normally we'll have our player focus, Johnny, and we'll talk about certain players, but I want to talk about the dynamism from the front three. Like Maida making his runs, how quick players like Kalmack are picking him out, or our first goal was Sinisalo playing the ball quickly to Schlupp to Kalmack threading that needle to get it through to Dazen for the first goal. Clinical, fast, one-touch football. And then the second goal was Maida off the post with a header, Jotta's on the spot to put it in. One touch from him, perfect. The thing that's not looked at that is the cross in for the header from Kun.
Mm.
They just that cross tore their defence apart. And then the third goal, Kun running with it and then putting in that cross to the back post for Maeda to put in his second goal of the game. Like, that's two assists. Oh, sorry, two crosses from Kun absolutely tearing it apart. That front three we've got going at the moment is just so fast, and they're working extremely well together. It's finally starting to get there where both Kun and Jota are knowing when to pick their spots and when to be tricky, when to just keep it simple and just beat a man. So it's good to see that. What's your thoughts on the front three we've got at the moment?
Look, like I was saying before, I think we're in such a good place with our attacking players, and I mean, and that goes beyond just the front three. But I think the synergy that our front three have, it's almost muscle memory from them. They know exactly what the other players are doing, and they know where to be, when they need to be. I will be, I will be somewhat surprised if that's the same front three we have next season. It like or at least if we do have that front three next season, I think we're in for a much better overall performance of the season. And if that means Europe, that means Europe. If that means domestically, that means domestically. Um, I think if we were to keep that front three and then complement and supplement in a couple of places elsewhere, it could generally be the strongest Celtic team we've seen in a long time. I think we have pretty much solved our front three. We obviously need depth, and then we've got, a very strong midfield, and we'll come on to defenders obviously later in the pod. But um, at least if I was in charge of team sheet every week, that front three writes itself every single time. So yeah, very
Yeah,
very good spot we're in.
100%. Got some comments here. People are saying that mate is going to get sold in the summer if he scores 40. Smell the glove saying if Lawwell sells Dazen in the summer, I'm starting to riot. I'll be in a one-man kettle by the police. Andrew Galea is saying I can't see us keeping Maida. We'll need a winger and a striker. Heavy Vibes is saying good to see Kun getting back to his game again. So yeah, it's good to see like the front three. It's just impressive, and they're all proven players at the Champions League level now. So that's the key thing. And the other thing we've got to remember is we're 50-50 at the moment. We've got one round of Champions League qualifiers to get through. We're 50-50 on if we're seeded or not. So the fact is, last thing I want to do is be selling Maeda, bringing in another striker, and then trying to rebuild it for a qualifiers. If you've got Maeda at striker, you've got Kunin, you've got Jota, you've got Eder behind it challenging them. That four there, you're set. So That's what we need. We need stability and we need to do our work early. And yeah, we'll get into a few other positions a bit later on. But yeah, what do you reckon, Johnny?
Look, I'm not sure. I think the other factor that we all need to remember is, you can correct me if I'm wrong. I'm not sure if any of these players' contracts is nearing the end, like within the next year, 18 months. There is, unless a seriously good offer comes in, we're not obligated to sell these players, even if they're desperate to go. It has to be. It has to be. If a player wants to go, it has to be close to the end of their contract within the next 18 months, a year. Otherwise, it needs to be a 20, 25, 30 million offer. And then at that type of money, it's hard for Celtic to ever say no. Doesn't matter who the player is. And I don't think we're going to get that type of money for any of them, to be honest, at the moment. So, um, like I say, it'd be fantastic if we had all three. I can't half agree with people that it'll be, it might happen, but it has to be for a good offer. And if it's for a good offer, then at least recently we've been doing quite well reinvesting it, and hopefully that can continue.
So on that, Johnny, we signed Kun to a 5.5 year deal last year when we signed in middle of the year. So at the end of this season, he'll have 4 years left.
Okay, so unless that's a 25, 30 million, it's not happening. What's Maeda's? I wouldn't be surprised if Maeda's got 2 years left in his contract.
That's where I was going next. Maeda will have 2 years left at this off season.
Yeah.
Jota he signed was a 5.5 year deal, so he's got 5 years left. And Ida was he'll have 4 years left at the end of the season. So we've got
But
some comments.
we might get one more season out of Maeda before it's kind of out of our hands.
Well, this is the thing. I'm going to bring up some comments here. So McLaughlin's saying we had a winter schedule like no other and a high-end Champions League from September to February. It's new to us and it's a learning curve. We may need a bigger squad. Heavy Vibes responded saying we need 4 players at least, more if we sell anyone. And then Andrew Galea saying hopefully Mater and his family are well settled and happy to stay. He's actually said it's been reported that he's happy in Scotland in playing for Celtic. His family's settled too, so you never know. I think his kids are getting to school age. But then Andrew is saying we're a selling club. If someone comes with a decent offer, we'll sell. And that's what you were saying, Johnny. Like we've been reinvesting well. So
That's it.
the key
And look,
thing is
and I also say to that, every single club is a selling club. Every single one. It doesn't matter who you are.
this
And
Real Madrid.
there is. I was going to say there is maybe, arguably, 5 teams in world football that don't need to sell if they don't want to. And like Chelsea, Man City, Real Madrid being a couple of those off the top of my head. Everybody else, everybody else needs to sell. When a player's at his peak value, you try and sell them. So if it comes to it and we get a great offer from Maeda, then look, it is what it is. It's just this is just part of the beautiful game. But um, as you've been saying, Jared, I would hope maybe another year, and then maybe it's just kind of a given. But I guess we'll see. And everybody's right. We need more depth. I think that's our biggest problem is depth.
Well, the thing is, Johnny, we've been talking about it for a while in that I want to have that production line. I want to have the starter. I want to have their backup. We just saw how that works in like on the weekend with Sinisalo. You've got Casper starting. Sinisalo is good and ready. He's good enough to come in and do the job. Like his ball playing's good, his distribution's good. A couple of good saves early on. He looks like a pretty calm fellow when like you see a couple of things go away and instead of screaming at him, he's just like, hey, settle it down and whatever. So he looks like when Casper moves on, that's our number one for the future. And he's still got 4 years left on his deal at the end of this season as well. So we're goalkeeper position's all set. It's who's the third keeper. Is it gonna be Bain? Is it gonna be Olawayemi coming back into that role? What's that gonna be? So goalkeeper position set. We don't have to worry about that this off season, which is first in a long time at Celtic. It's been a couple of years we've been constantly looking. It's like Joe Hart, but then who's his backup?
Yeah,
Segrist wants to move, so we've got to get someone else in, blah, blah, blah. Well, that's all sorted. That position's good. Our front three, our front four's all sorted. We've got Yang playing well. I want better than that. And that's where we're
yeah,
getting at. And like, smell the gloves saying here, I want quality subs on the bench and fully use the fifth sub every game with the fourth or fifth one being an academy player. And that is exactly what I want. The production line. I want it to be our starter. I want someone to back up. So when the starter gets sold, the backup goes in there. And then the third string should be an academy player who's willing to step up into that second string role. That's what they do at Club Bruges. And it works perfect. That's how they bring players through. That's what I want from us. So ideally, and we're going to get into the left back situation in a minute, but that's how we're going to tackle that. But realistically, if you look at our right back situation, we're set there. We've got enough players in that position. We've got Johnson, we've got Ralston backing him up, and we've got a young kid as a third option there. Left back needs some work. Centre back needs some work. The midfield needs some work. And then maybe we need another striker, depending upon how we need another striker or another winger, depending on what we're going to do with Maeda. That's what we need if we keep everyone. If people want to move on, then as Maestro says, if they're desperate to go, then you sell them.
Yep.
And Pegleg Lonergan's saying there's no speculation about Hatade, probably because he's so inconsistent. But he's got 4 years left on his deal as well. So, and McLaughlin makes a good point here. I'd tell Maeda to look at what's happened with Kyogo before he makes any decisions. And I think he'll take that into consideration. So it's one of those ones where I just look at it and there's a lot that can happen, but there's a few weak spots. Ideally, best way to do it would be if we have players coming through, great. But we do need to strengthen in a few spots, because if we want those 4 or 5 quality subs that we can have, what we need to have is our current starters either bring someone in at their level or better, so they drop to the bench, or bring someone in to challenge them. Imagine if you brought someone in like Kun's level, you spent 10, 11 million on the winger, and his job is, okay, you want to play on the left or the right, whatever you play, go and beat Jota or go and beat Kun out of the spot. Now that makes our squad better, doesn't it?
I think the best example I can think of right now, top of my head, in recent years, what you're talking about, Jared, was Paddy Roberts and Forest. The introduction of Roberts to the team brought Forest to another level that we hadn't seen for a while in him. And the two, I can't quite remember, but they almost played the same games, right? They probably all both played 20 games a season, or give or take maybe. And two complement, as in two players at the same competence, complemented each other and pushed each other on to a level that they didn't otherwise have. That's basically what you want. You're not going to get you. We shouldn't go back to the days like we had with Tierney or even McGregor, for Christ's sake, where we're playing them for 60 games a season. It just ruins a player. You should be playing 1 for 30, 1 for 20, or 2 for 30. It needs to happen where you get two players fighting for a position, making each other better, getting roughly the same sort of games depending on their um, peaks and troughs of their performances and stuff. It
And
works.
the other way, another thing on that, Johnny, as well, is you want to have two players battling it out for a spot, but you want to have two players who are slightly different. So where Roberts and Forrest worked was back then, Jamesy hadn't lost his speed yet. So
Yeah.
he was the guy hugging this touch line, the sideline, and then putting the crosses in from wide. But then Roberts was there, he was inverting and coming in, allowing Lustig to overlap. So they were different, but yeah, both would have started about the same amount of games, and yeah, subs and coming off, they both would have played maybe 40 odd games.
I agree. Absolutely. And having that different play style, even if it's minor, the effect being the same, but the way that you go about it being different, it just keeps opposition on their toes. It actually means that opposition might completely change tactics based on one player, and you substitute, and that particular change, it means nothing. You've completely bypassed it. I mean, that's really why the head coaches and the coaching staff get paid the mega bucks, is because they're the ones that tweak all that stuff and bring players on at the right time, depending on factors X, Y, Z. But having that versatility in your roster is what you want. And I think, look, if to be fair to Celtic at the moment, we do have that to a large extent in most positions. I think what you're talking about is I think what we're all talking about is having that a bit more consistently across all positions, as in like attacking, midfield, and defense, so that we can just change depending on circumstances and stuff, or injuries, or suspensions, or whatever it is.
Or
And
the
I kind of
opposition,
feel like we
Johnny.
don't have that. Yeah, or the opposite, exactly. Opposition's playing style.
Let's look at
And
it.
we did do that in Europe. To be very honest, we did that in Europe, and we can all say we had a fantastic season in the Champions League, like for compared to what we've had for a long, long time. So it can work.
I was going to throw one at you here. Think back to Ange's first season. Who was his starting striker? Kyogo. If we needed to start someone physical, he had Giakoumakis who could start and Kyogo would come off the bench. So it was interchangeable. It's the same dynamic that we've got at the moment. You've got Ida who's big and strong in that, but then you've got Maeda for the movement and speed. So it's the same thing where you've got two players in the same position that do it different. So say if you're playing against Rangers, they're just big across the park and want to kick lumps out of you, and you get into a 50-50, they outpowered us. They didn't outplay us football wise. They just bullied us off the ball.
Mm.
In that situation, who would you go with? The bigger, stronger one. You can actually go, horses for courses here and go instead of okay, well we play this way. Well, you can actually put in a player who's got a bit more size, a bit more prick about him, basically, to get out there and get the job done. So
I,
it also
I
allows the tactical adjustments.
I think Ida has that capability. I don't think he currently possesses that. Um, that cockiness that I think a player of his type needs. He needs the Bruni effect. He needs to literally swagger around and just take lumps and just be like, yeah, he doesn't need to get any stronger, he doesn't need to get any bigger, but it's all psychology for him. We've seen it when he couldn't score. I can't remember what it was, 9 games, 10 games. He hadn't scored, and he was losing it a bit in his head. But he's young, and that comes with maturity. It will just happen one day, and he'll just have all of this, um, like swagger about him. And then I think he is perfect to play in games against Rangers and stuff, and any
The
sort of
perf-
physical thing.
the perfect thing with him as well, we just need someone to get in his ear and get in his head, and basically, you know, when you're playing against someone that you don't like, sometimes you just want to get out there and show them up. Sometimes you just like he seems too chill when we're playing against them.
I agree.
For me, I think we need someone to get out there and tell him you look shit in a balaclava, or something like that when he's out there, or tell him if you don't score, I'm going to steal your dog, or something like that. He just needs someone to like G him up a bit and get him like a little bit get the angry pills in him before he takes the field, especially against them. And yeah, I don't mind if he cops a couple of cards, throw a few elbows around, put the jump up for a header. You know you're not going to win it, so put the knee into the guy's thigh, give him a bit of a corky as he's competing for a header, stuff like that. Sometimes you got to play a bit of the dark arts. That's what he needs, that physicality, and play a little bit angry sometimes and learn that some of those dark arts.
Maybe he needs to do the old Barry Ferguson and go into a cubicle and pretend he's headbutting Rangers players and punch walls and stuff, just to get himself g'd up, right?
One for the wrestling fans. Get him to do Goldberg and just headbutt a door before going out. So I'm just going through some of the comments here. We've got like there's people. The guys are talking about the youth academy, and they're saying like Doak had slipped through the cracks of the academy, and then it was only once Liverpool look at him we got interested. I think the issue with the what do we got here? And then Maestro saying, do we need an upgrade on coaching at youth level? Getting rid of the old boys club would be a start, and making sure
Yeah,
we get the best candidate for every job, not just at youth academy, but across the club in general would be helpful. There we go. Smell the glove saying it's too much jobs for the boys. And Jerry Burns is saying it here. The biggest issue with us bringing players through from our youth is that there's no reserve league. That's what the issue is. The B league, the B team is like the fifth tier. It's too low. So if, as I was saying
I'm not.
last week, if Lenny does well at Dunfermline, maybe we need to send him a few players, send Bruni a few players, and just start to get some trusted clubs to be a bridge for our B team players that are any good to come through.
Me personally, and I know I'm a minority here, I hated the reserve league. I thought it was a waste, or I don't think anybody took it seriously. And I am not going to defend what the current format of Celtic B is, but I think the idea of it will has the possibility of being better than what the reserve league ever was. I think at the moment, all the other teams in the SBFL are shit scared of just seeing Celtic and all the other teams just dominate every league, and not just the top tier. So I think this whole capping it at the was it Lowland League or some whatever it is, I think that's a nonsense. I think is it Spanish or someone else? It's like it has to be one below. There has to be like a league separation between the two.
Yes, Spain and Germany have different
Spain
rules.
and
So
Germany. Yeah.
Spain is you have to be in the second tier. You can't come up. Even if you win the second tier, you can't come up to the same division. And
Yep.
Germany it has to be a league different between them. So if you're in the top tier, then you feeder teams in the third tier.
Yeah. I just I can't see any examples of the reserve league benefiting at Celtic. I just don't see it. I see the principles of having a B team being far more beneficial. But I agree that it's a bit useless as it is now. And the Lowland League, if I'm being honest, see between probably the next 2 or 3 leagues, there isn't much difference between the Lowland League and the next couple of leagues above it. But getting into the Scottish Championship would have been is kind of where you want them to be to flat competitiveness.
Yeah, 100%. So talking about our squad lock, so we mentioned we need to get another midfield. I reckon we need to get probably another number six. I reckon in there. So you have Kelmac in the six along with whoever that is. And then Engels, yeah, he's a six. He can play it, but I like him when he's playing in the eight for us. In this team, he's better in that role. Bernardo can potentially play as a six. So we've got options there. So we need probably one more number for the midfield. We need another winger, and then we need the issue is what do we do with our centre backs? Do we let Naroski go? Do we let Welsh move on? Do we bring in another centre back to challenge Trusty and Carter Vickers? What do we do there? Strengthen that. But then the main position I'm touched on it earlier, left back. So there's a couple of options because Brendan's come out and he said it looks like Greg Taylor's going to be away in the off season. He's unlikely to sign a new deal. Jeffrey Schlupp has taken over at left back since coming to the club, and he's also said that, well, he'd consider staying next year if offered a deal. So, Johnny, how do you think Celtic will replace Greg Taylor in the squad? For me, there's two options. Option one, we go with an experienced player like Schlupp to back up KT, who's coming in already. And then we have, because, we'll stagger his games. So they'll split it the way you were saying about Forrest and what's it called? Paddy Roberts, the way they used to timeshare that position. You could do that if you have KT and Schlupp there. Or do you go for a young, ambitious player in the role? Someone's like 21, 22, and target someone to come in to basically understudy a KT for 2 years to take his role. How would you tackle it?
Experience every single time. Every single time. I think having two experienced players in any position outweighs for where we're currently at as well. Like I understand all the arguments of having a young player in it, and sort of KT is not playing more than 25 games a season. I just don't ever see that happening. He's going to be injured for weeks at a time. So we just need somebody to come in and to be able to cover that position. I think having a third player as the understudy and rotate between them is what we're talking about as the best of both worlds. We kind of tried to do this with the young left back. Laxalt was young. Who's the Brazilian? Christ, I forgot his name. The one that we said Bernardo, not Bernardo, Barnaby. Barnaby's a young player sent away. There's so many different left backs that we've had that have been the young. Is Bolongola young? I can't remember. Ish.
He
Um,
was he was
yeah,
youngish when we got him here, like 22 or something like that.
right. It didn't. We had Taylor. We thought, he's good for the position, and we'll get him a young guy in, and then hopefully build it. We tried it all. It didn't work. I just think the idea for me of having Schlupp and KT in that position, I think that would be absolutely ideal for where we're at, even if it's for one more season, and then we can sort of like figure out more of a long term solution next year. But I just experience every single time for me. We don't have a lot of experience in our team. It's a very young team.
So I've got a couple of different options here, Johnny. But before that, Jerry Burns is saying we should have held on to Awada. He could have done the job in front of the defence. Agree with that. Smell the Glove is saying I'd get Schlupp anyway, not just for left back, for various positions. Good
True.
point. Andrew Galea is saying Schlupp will be back down south.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, that's probably what's going to happen. It'd be almost impossible for us to have him again.
Heavy Vibes are saying keep KT for big games like the Huns and Euro games and some league games to keep him fit. And then Meister saying where does it start and end? How does a young player gain experience? Asked Ronnie Dahlia about KT. Well, KT only got his chance because he was third. He was the third best left back in the youth academy. The two others got loaned out just before the injuries happened, so he was all we were left with. So if you look at sliding doors moments like that, it's a bit of a interesting one. And that's where option C comes in that I didn't throw your way, Johnny, which was I would sign Schlupp. This is how I'd do it. So you'd have KT and Schlupp, and then you can just rotate them however you need to do it. But the other thing is I was saying I want to have that production line. Well, we have two young quality left backs on the books coming through at the moment. We currently have Matthew Anderson, he's 21 years old, playing over at Admira Wacker, our feeder team over in Austria. He's played 14 games, 1 goal, 1 assist, 3 yellow cards this season. So I'd be looking at potentially having him backing up KT and Schlupp. If that doesn't work, so that way if you need to, you can play KT, you can have Anderson backing him up and you can play Schlupp elsewhere if you need to as well. But then the other one is Mitchell Frame. 19 years old. He did well in the UEFA Youth League for us this year. So I just look at it and go, we've got a couple there. So why not try and bring Schlupp in, give him, 12 months or whatever it is. And then, yeah, bring in, so you've got KT, you've got Schlupp, and then you've got a pathway for if KT's always injured, you've got Schlupp, and then you've got one of those guys to back him up. If Schlupp has to play another position, you still got backup. I think that's probably the best way to do it. That way you're ticking the box with a young and ambitious player. You're still getting the experience of Schlupp in, and you also bring them through a homegrown player for the UEFA quota as well.
Yeah, look, I would prefer, but I would prefer Celtic to always look at the players we already have in before buying elsewhere. Always, I think we don't have the cash just to screw it or buy a couple of extra more players. We just don't have that money. So I think if we can develop players, then that's the way to do it. If I wasn't mistaken, I think we've been doing that recently. Is the Celtic B team not the sales from that not the third most in the Scottish system,
Yep.
something like that? Yep. Celtic always dominates. Um, yeah, look, I think I think it was Maestro said that the comment about where's the line, where does it start and end? I think he said. Um, we have so many games. We have so many games, and I think with the Champions League stuff now, with the extra 2 games or whatever it is, and then the potential of going through to next round, there will be opportunities for a youth player that is ready to play in the first team to play. There will be maybe not dead rubber games, but there'll be fixtures where we're playing against bottom of the league, where maybe we've got a cup game in the midweek. There's opportunities to be had. Early rounds of cups, there's definitely opportunities. I think KT will not be the player that we sold. He will be a vastly different player. He has been injured a lot at his other clubs. He will be injured again when we have him. So we need an experienced player ready to pick up most of the slack. But a youth player is always going to have an opportunity. the reason why we haven't been playing youth players is I don't believe that they are ready to. I don't think they're the caliber that we need to play in the first team. And if we look back at the COVID season when everybody had COVID and we had to play fecking youth players, did it go well? No. Now, fair enough, it was like 9 of them, but it's it for
Nothing
the
went well,
argument,
yeah.
nothing went well. But these youth players aren't quite there yet, and it's a criticism of our setup. Not necessarily them getting into the first team. It's coaching, training, opportunity, all of it. It's yeah.
I'm
I
gonna
think just I know we're biased, but I think the Australian system, uh, developing youth, and even maybe the American system as well, they're kind of best in the world sort of stuff. We should be emulating that.
I'm gonna say something there, Johnny. Bringing the youth, there's a few things here, but this is gonna say it here. Andrew Galea is saying this about Schlupp. There's bigger wages in the English Championship, and that factor also accounts for our youth. When you're losing players to clubs like Watford, you're losing youth players at age 15, 16 to Bayern Munich and to Man City,
Yeah,
and so on. The cream of the crop in your youth academy. These are the guys that would be breaking in on skill. And Heavy Vibes has asked the question: who was the last youth player to break through on his own skill and not because we were short of players? Probably James Forrest. There you go. Being honest,
or KT, but yeah,
KT was short on players. That's the only reason he got his.
yeah, no, very true.
So
Yeah,
if you take that out of it, you're probably looking at either James Forrest or Aidan McGeady. They're your options. So it is terrible. But those guys who were the cream of the crop of the youth academy, that'd be the ones that you'd get in when they're 18, you loan them for a year or two, then you're bringing them through. The same role that Calmac played and went on. He's loaned to Notts County and so on. Or you go the Chris Iyer loan, or you go the Ryan Christie loan and then bring them back and break them in. We lost that whole group. We've lost the best part of a decade's worth of those players. So the ones who are there at the moment, some of them aren't good enough. Some of them aren't up to the standard. We've got to find a way. As Andrew's saying, it's too big a jump from the B team to the first team. So, and then Maestro's saying the thing is we're investing in facilities for our youth. Why not invest in better coaches outside the box? 100%.
yep.
Barrowfield, when that's all done, the youth academy is going to be one of the best in the UK in terms of setup, like what's available, not in terms of pitches, numbers, and everything, but in terms of everything that's there that they need. It's what it is. So realistically, we got the right setup. We just need good coaches and we need the players to hang around and break in. But the other thing is, I'm going to sound like an absolute wank here. We're the problem. It's us. So because we don't develop players because we want to win every game. So we won't play the kids. So we're our own biggest problem. Like you look at Ajax, they will allow themselves to have one down year in four so that they can, you know, so they can bring the players through. The issue is in Holland, if Ajax don't win it, there's probably 3 or 4 other clubs that could win it. So it's not going to be guaranteed the way it is. If we don't win it, we're giving money to our biggest rival, to a club that's, skint and going to give them a chop out. Like, so that's the issue. We don't want to, we need to win every game. If we draw a game, some of our fans and sometimes us on the pod, we act like it was a loss.
I mean, and that's probably why. I mean, the youth players are probably abundantly aware of that factor, and they're like, "Well, I'll get better opportunities playing for, I mean, Christ, Watford or someone like that." Like, do you know what I mean? Their setup cannot be can't be much different than ours. Um, and it's Watford at the end of the day, so it's not exactly as if it's a lovely place to live. But they would rather something like that than never getting an opportunity at Celtic because they're never going to be able to get to that point. So it's just I think it's just a collateral. It's like collateral damage of being at Celtic.
Let's look
What
at it this
would
way,
we
Johnny.
would we have it any other way? Would we have it any other way? I don't think we would, to be honest.
Let's look at
I
it
don't.
this way. If you had the chance in your job to earn more money and live in a warmer climate or in a bigger city, would you take it?
I mean, not only would I take it, it's what I did when I emigrated back to Australia.
Ah, I know, that's why I set you up like that. Because
Literally what I did. So
realistically,
yeah.
if you look at the guys going to Watford, you said it's not a good area, but okay, they're earning more money. They're actually going to have a pathway through to first team football or play first team football, and they're living in a city the size of London.
Oh, and I mean,
Like,
to be fair, Watford is so far north that if you're earning mega money, you live in the rich English countryside anyway. You don't really live in Watford. You live in
yeah,
Herefordshire or something. So
exactly. So it's one of those sort of things. So you got to look at it. Question here from Square Sausage Mick. Would a young Charlie Nicholas be able to break into our team these days? No chance. He wouldn't even get a spot on the bench. Look at what happened to Jack Aitchison. That's all I'm going to
mm,
say.
yeah. I think it's I don't think we're gonna get a scenario where it's perfect every single way. I think we're gonna get I think what we should strive for though is a very very uh, well renowned high standard of youth football setup where we have high caliber coaches training um, young players, into being the best possible football players. And whether that's at Celtic or elsewhere is not really relevant because it's mutually beneficial. We either sell them to another team where we get financial benefits from, or they stay at Celtic and we've got a really good player to then kick on and at sort of like really they need to be starting at like 18, 19 is when they should be starting out in the Celtic team, first team. Otherwise, it's just not really going to work out. But that's kind of what you want is, and not sort of a half in, half out approach, which is what I think we currently have.
Couple of things on there, Johnny. I'm going to look at it this way. Square Sausage Mick is saying use the loan system. That's something we don't do. Like Karamoko
Don't.
Dembele, perfect example. Young kid, massive raps, and what happened? He doesn't get to play. Doesn't play football for almost 2 years. Plays 5 games off the bench, and then another 2 games here, there, and everywhere. So the club's wasting millions, right? The other thing is the Lowland League is way too low. I know it won't happen of Celtic and Rangers playing in the EPL, okay? And I don't want that to happen. I think it's a crock of shit, right? But I would love for our youth team to be playing down at least in the EPL Youth 2 or UP Youth 1 or whatever it is, like the EPL Youth. At least they're going to get exposure. The quality of coaching has to step up, and they're playing high quality games week in, week out. That's the good side. The bad side is then they're exposed to all those clubs down there who can go to cross borders, but then that opens us up to be able to cherry pick their players as well and bring them in at a age young enough that they can still count as homegrown for us as well for Europe. So it
I think
goes
we
both
talked about
ways.
this in. Did we not talk about this in the group chat? Was Celtic at one point was going to buy Wimbledon and turn it into another
Yeah.
Celtic team, and then why haven't we done that now? And blah blah blah. And it's it's something that could happen. It probably should have happened, and there might even be reasons why it's not. It's like it's not possible to do some sort of within the rules of the game and stuff. We might not be able to do it. But
That's why I'm just saying play the youth team down there in
yeah,
the
yeah, no, no,
the
yeah, I
youth
get it. Yeah,
Premier
yeah,
League. I'm not saying
yeah.
it at senior level because those clubs down there are going to protect themselves in that sort of thing. But yeah, that's how where I'm looking at it anyway. But last last thing I want to quickly ask you, Johnny, before we go, we'll do one lucky dip topic probably. But yeah, Pegleg, you're right. The pricks won't let us in though. Is Johnny, would you take Kyogo back at Celtic next season if he's available for the £3.5 million being reported all over the place?
Yeah. Anyone who says otherwise is mental or just hurt. Which I get because he left and it was weird and yeah, of course you would. Would I the next question though, Jared, is would I play him over Maeda? And that's absolutely not.
No,
I would only be having Kyogo back as a backup, as what we're talking about is that depth type of player. Like like I said before, Kyogo at the end of his tenure wasn't really the player that we had, and he is like 30, 31, so like it's probably expected. Um, and he's what has he played, like 80 minutes or some mad shit like that since he left Celtic, and so like no, he's not playing in front of Maeda, but yeah, obviously I'd have him back. He was absolutely phenomenal from us, and even if he get 20% of that, it means he's going to bang in 10 goals a season. That's still all right for someone coming off the bench. So yeah, 3 million for a known factor. Yeah, of
You want to know something funny, Johnny? I'd bring him back. However, I'd still start Maeda.
course,
I'm looking at it going 3.5 million when we sold him for 10. That's 6.5 million in our pocket.
for nothing.
But then he wouldn't play, so then I'd flip him, and you'd sell him elsewhere in the same window for 8, 9, 10, whatever it is again, and you're making double your money. That's actually what I'd be looking at doing.
Well,
So
I think he's
it didn't suit the
um,
way Brendan played. That's why I'm saying that.
yeah, yeah, yeah. But I'm mental. Yeah, well, there you go. We all are a little
Andrews,
bit.
there we go. So Kyogo, Andrew's saying Kyogo will get snapped up. Square Sausage Mick is Kyogo was way off it last year, 100%.
Yeah,
The other thing here, Andrew Galea makes a good point. We've got to keep buying cheap young talent from Japan, Korea, and Australia, loan them to SPFL opposition for a season, then use them or move them. I like that, agree with it. It's what we've got to do with Kwon. We've got to sell him this off season. We've got to make a decision. Is Yang going to make it at Celtic? If he's not, sell him this off season. If we're looking for a young left back and you're looking at the Australian market, Casey Boss at Melbourne Victory. I spoke about his brother Geordie for years on this pod. Bring him in. Casey's just as good at the same age, so bring him in. You want to look for a left winger. I was hoping Shane was on so he could growl at me because I'm a Victory fan and I'm absolutely just trying to sell our two best young players to Celtic. But Nishan Valupale just made his Australian debut recently, banging in goals, like he scored like I think 5 goals in 5 games. Get him in as well. He could do a lot worse.
I am a big fan of the loan system, and to be fair, we don't do that often, which is buy players for the sole intention of selling them and not really playing them. Where they're there to be bought, put in a Celtic jersey, which immediately puts another 10 million on them, say, and then sell them on. We should be doing that. Financially, it makes sense.
Smell the glove. Does Tilio still play football? Yeah, he's at Melbourne City. That's all I have to say about that. Prick. So, everyone, first person in the comments, number between 1 and 25. We're going for a lucky dip topic. This could go anywhere. Come on, waiting. Got to we don't want dead air for the audio listeners. So, get Johnny to sing a song because he's been away for a while.
It would never happen unless I've got like a drink in me, and you might get me to do karaoke.
There we go. Heavy Vibes is saying number 3. That's the first one that come through. Oh, that's a deep one. This could go for 25 minutes, I reckon. How does Celtic's current team compare to the Martin O'Neill era?
Oh,
That sounds like an off-season one, seriously.
yeah,
Um,
that's you.
that's a deep dive.
Well, I mean, look, see if we just keep it superficial, then keep it like, and then I
Yeah,
reckon that
just in
is
the
a good
squad.
topic off season. Yeah, yeah, just like keep it. It's hard. That's a hard one for me because that that team was my Celtic youth. So that's like prime, 10-year-old Johnny watching Celtic with the family, grandparents, uncles, everybody. Um, so that, to be fair, that is the bar I pretty much hold all Celtic teams to. I think we would need more European success, even though the game's changed. Even though the game's changed, and having that type of European success is so much harder. Um, we would need to get to some sort of final, a quarter final, whatever, before we could start talking about that actually being on that level. For me personally,
So you're talking about that, Johnny. Me, straight away. those guys would absolutely physically destroy our current team. We are so lightweight compared to them. And you
That's
got this,
probably
you go
true. Yeah.
square sausage meat powder puff in comparison.
Oh yeah.
Smell the
Yeah.
glove. It doesn't. Heavy vibes. What do we got? Not even close.
Yeah. See, I was being very political. Everyone else is. Yeah, I'm glad we're all on the
2
same page there.
words. Henrik
Maybe
Larsson.
Larson. Yeah. See, that's what I mean. Or fucking John Hartson even. John
Yeah.
Hartson would be better than most strikers. Yeah.
Heavy vibes. O'Neill's team best in my lifetime. No good subs though. Maestro Martin O'Neill team more physicality, more strength, bigger personalities. And this is the one here, Andrew Galea. O'Neill's team was EPL standard nowadays in terms of the size, the way they played. Like, yeah.
Oh
So
yeah. Oh yeah.
I,
Yeah. No.
I
Yeah.
like the players we've got are likable, but in terms of if you took them in that squad in that the way they played at the time and put it against this team playing right now, no chance. We'll
Speed.
go.
You could definitely argue that we're a faster team, yeah, and probably a fitter team. But
You could.
I'm with everybody. I'm playing devil's advocate.
And we'll just look at one other. Oh, we've number 2. What's the most pressing issue Celtic needs to address in the next transfer window?
Oh, we talked about it. Depth, squad depth.
Depth.
Yeah.
For me, it's the left back situation is the most pressing thing. We got KT in, but as we discussed earlier, are we bringing in an experienced one, or are we going for a young backup? That's the thing for me. So, yeah, we've already done all that. So, Johnny, what we'll do to wrap the pod up, somehow we've got to the hour. This has been a bit of a, I actually really enjoyed this one. I thought it was going to
Easy
be
to
a
talk
short
about
one.
Celtic.
Exactly. So, we'll go our final thoughts. So, you got one ready?
Yeah, I've always got a music final thought. Um, so I've been obviously because I was saying I've been traveling a lot, listening to heaps of music. A lot of it been repeat like the old stuff, going through old albums and stuff. Um, I've been into a lot of the old rock and roll stuff, kind of my thing anyway, but like proper old stuff. And that kind of led me into a bit of Elvis Presley, and then I found a new guy called Elliot James, and I hope I'm saying this right. Elliot James Ray, spelled Reay, who's 22 years old from Manchester, and I swear to God, sounds exactly the same as Elvis Presley. Same type of music, but just same voice, phenomenal. I don't think his particular style of music is very popular nowadays, so it might not be a big name. But see, if you like Presley, give that guy a go. He's very good.
Nice. We'll have to check it out. But yeah, for me, my final thought, really simple. If you can't be nice to someone, prepare to get kicked. I saw someone today at the shops and he was just mouthing off at this old woman and she's just turned around and booted him in the shins, got in her car and drove off. It was the funniest.
Good on
All
her.
right. All right, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. Be back next week. Hail, hail.
Oh well.